Miami Vice is an American television crime drama series that was produced by Michael Mann for NBC. The series starred Don Johnson as James Sonny Crockett and Philip Michael Thomas as Ricardo Rico Tubbs, two Metro-Dade Police Department detectives working undercover in Miami. The series ran for 5 seasons on NBC from 1984 to 1989. The USA Network later began airing reruns the next year, in 1990, and actually broadcast an originally unaired episode during its syndication run of the series on January 25, 1990. Unlike standard police procedurals, the show drew heavily upon 1980s new wave culture and music. The show became noted for its heavy integration of music and visual effects to tell a story. It is recognized as one of the most influential television series of all time. People magazine stated that Miami Vice was the first show to look really new and different since color TV was invented. Seasons 2 to 5 were aired in stereo. Episodes of the show have become popular in syndication since its cancellation both in the US and in several foreign markets, a testament to the show's ongoing appeal. Michael Mann directed a film adaptation of the television series, which was released on July 28, 2006. Conception. It was rumored that the head of NBC's entertainment division, Brandon Tartikoff, wrote a brainstorming memo that simply read MTV Cops, and later presented the memo to series creator Anthony Yakovich, formerly a writer and producer for Hill Street Blues. Yakovich, however, indicates that he devised the concept after learning about asset forfeiture statutes that allow law enforcement agencies to confiscate the property of convicted drug dealers for official use. The initial idea was for a movie about a pair of vice cops in Miami. Yakovich then turned out a script for a 2-hour pilot, titled Gold Coast, but later renamed Miami Vice. Yakovich was immediately drawn to South Florida as a setting for his news-style police show. Miami Vice was one of the first American network television programs to be broadcast in stereophonic sound. It was mixed in stereo for its entire run, but not actually broadcast in stereo until 1985. Production. In keeping with the show's namesake, most episodes focused on combating drug trafficking and prostitution. Episodes more often than not ended in a large gun battle, claiming the lives of several criminals before they could be apprehended. An undercurrent of cynicism and futility underlied the entire series. The detectives repeatedly reference the whack-a-mole nature of drug interdiction, with its parade of drug cartels to replace those that are brought to justice. Co-executive producer Anthony Yakovich explained. Even when I was on Hill Street Blues, I was collecting information on Miami. I thought of it as a sort of a modern-day American Casablanca. It seemed to be an interesting socio-economic tide pool, the incredible number of refugees from Central America and Cuba, the already extensive Cuban-American community, and on top of all that the drug trade. There is a fascinating amount of service industries that revolve around the drug trade: money laundering, bail bondsmen, attorneys who service drug smugglers. Miami has become a sort of Barbary Coast of free enterprise gone berserk. The choice of music and cinematography borrowed heavily from the emerging new wave culture of the 1980s. As such, segments of Miami Vice would sometimes use music-based stanzas, a technique later featured in Baywatch. As Lee H. Katzin, one of the show's directors, remarked, the show is written for an MTV audience, which is more interested in images, emotions and energy than plot and character and words. These elements made the series into an instant hit, and in its first season saw an unprecedented 15 Emmy Award nominations. While the first few episodes contained elements of a standard police procedural, the producers soon abandoned them in favor of a more distinctive style. Of the many different production aspects of the show, no earth tones were allowed to be used. A director of Miami Vice, Bobby Roth, recalled, "There are certain colors you are not allowed to shoot, such as red and brown. If the script says a Mercedes pulls up here, the car people will show you 3 or 4 different Mercedes. One will be white, one will be black, one will be silver. You will not get a red or brown one. Michael knows how things are going to look on camera." Casting. Nick Nolte and Jeff Bridges were considered for the role of Sonny Crockett, but since it was not lucrative for film stars to venture into television at the time, other candidates were considered. Mickey Rourke was also considered for the role, but he turned the offer down. Larry Wilcox, of Chips, was also a candidate for the role of Crockett, but the producers felt that going from one police officer role to another was not going to be a good fit. After dozens of candidates and twice delayed pilot shooting, Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas were chosen as the vice cops. For Johnson, who was by then 35 years old, NBC had particular doubts about the several earlier unsuccessful pilots in which he had starred. After 2 seasons, Johnson threatened to walk from the series as part of a highly publicized contract dispute. The network was ready to replace him with Mark Harmon, who had recently departed St. Elsewhere, but the network and Johnson were able to resolve their differences and he continued with the series until its end. Actor Jimmy Smits played Eddie Rivera, Crockett's partner who was killed early in the pilot episode. Locations: before production started, it was briefly considered to do all or most of the exterior filming in Los Angeles, and pass it off to viewers as urban Miami. Many episodes of Miami Vice were filmed in the South Beach section of Miami Beach, an area which, at the time, was blighted by poverty and crime. Some street corners of South Beach were so run down that the production crew actually decided to repaint the exterior walls of some buildings before filming. The crew went to great lengths to find the correct settings and props. Bobby Raff recalled, "I found this house that was really perfect, but the color was sort of beige. The art department instantly painted the house gray for me." Even on feature films people try to deliver what is necessary but no more. At Miami Vice they start with what's necessary and go beyond it. Miami Vice is to some degree credited with causing a wave of support for the preservation of Miami's famous Art Deco architecture in the mid-1980s to early 1990s. And quite a few of those buildings, among the many beachfront hotels, have been renovated since filming, making that part of South Beach one of South Florida's most popular places for tourists and celebrities. Other places commonly filmed in the series included scenes around Broward and Palm Beach counties. Music: Miami Vice is noted for its innovative use of stereo broadcast music, particularly countless pop and rock hits of the 1980s and the distinctive, synthesized instrumental music of Jan Hammer. While other television shows used made-for-TV music, Miami Vice would spend $10,000 or more per episode to buy the rights to original recordings. Getting a song played on Miami Vice was a boost to record labels and artists. In fact, some newspapers, such as USA Today, would let readers know the songs that would be featured that week. Among the many well-known bands and artists who contributed their music to the show were Roger Daltrey, El DeBarge, Davo, Russ Ballard, Black Uhuru, Jackson Browne, Kate Bush, Meat Loaf, Phil Collins, Bryan Adams, Tina Turner, Peter Gabriel, Pink Floyd, ZZ Top, The Tubes, Dire Straits, Depeche Mode, The Hooters, Iron Maiden, The Alan Parsons Project, The Ward Brothers, Godley and Creme, Corey Hart, Glenn Frey, U2, Underworld, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Foreigner, The Police, Red 7, Ted Nugent, Suicidal Tendencies, The Damned and Billy Idol. Several artists even guest-starred in episodes, including Phil Collins, Miles Davis, The Power Station, Glenn Frey, Suicidal Tendencies, Willie Nelson, Ted Nugent, Frank Zappa, The Fat Boys, Sheena Easton, and Gene Simmons. An iconic scene from the Miami Vice pilot involves Crockett and Tubbs driving through Miami at night to Phil Collins's mega-hit song In the Air Tonight. Jan Hammer credits executive producer Michael Mann for allowing him great creative freedom in scoring Miami Vice. The collaboration resulted in memorable instrumental pieces, including the show's title theme, which climbed to the top of the U.S. Billboard charts in November 1985. The Miami Vice original soundtrack, featuring Jan Hammer's #1 hit theme song and Glenn Frey's Smuggler's Blues, and You Belong to the City, stayed on the top of the U.S. album chart for 11 weeks in 1985, making it the most successful TV soundtrack at the time. The Miami Vice theme was so popular that it also garnered 2 Grammy Awards in 1986. It was also voted #1 theme song of all time by TV Guide readers. Crockett's theme, another recurring tune from the show, became a #1 hit in several European countries in 1987. During the show's run, 3 official soundtrack albums with original music from the episodes were released. Hammer has released several albums with music from the series. Among them are Escape from Television, Snapshots, and after many requests from fans, Miami Vice, the complete collection. Fashion. The clothes worn on Miami Vice had a significant influence on men's fashion. They popularized, if not invented, the T-shirt under Armani jacket style, and popularized Italian men's fashion in the United States. Don Johnson's typical attire of Italian sport coat, T-shirt, white linen pants, and slip-on sockless loafers became a hit. Even Crockett's perpetually unshaven appearance sparked a minor fashion trend, inspiring men to wear a small amount of beard stubble, also known as a 5 o'clock shadow at all times. In an average episode, Crockett and Tubbs wore 5 to 8 outfits, appearing in shades of pink, blue, green, peach, fuchsia, and the show's other approved colors. Designers such as Vittorio Ricci, Gianni Versace, and Hugo Boss were consulted in keeping the male leads looking trendy. Costume designer Bambi Breakstone, who traveled to Milan, Paris, and London in search of new clothes, said that the concept of the show is to be on top of all the latest fashion trends in Europe. Jody Tillen, the costume designer for the first season, along with Michael Mann, set the style. The abundance of pastel colors on the show reflected Miami's Art Deco architecture. During its 5-year run, consumer demand for unconstructed blazers, shiny fabric jackets, and lighter pastels increased. After 6 formal wear even created a line of Miami Vice dinner jackets, Kenneth Cole introduced Crockett and Tubbs shoes, and Macy's opened a Miami Vice section in its young men's department. Crockett also boosted Ray-Ban's popularity by wearing a pair of Ray-Ban Wayfarer, which increased sales of Ray-Bans to 720,000 units in 1984. In the spring of 1986, an electric razor became available called the Stubble device, that allowed users to have a beard like Don Johnson's character. Initially, it was named the Miami device by Wall, but in the end the company wanted to avoid a trademark infringement lawsuit. Many of the styles popularized by the TV show, such as the T-shirt under pastel suits, no socks, rolled-up sleeves, and Ray-Ban sunglasses, have today become the standard image of 1980s culture. The influence of Miami Vice's fashions continued into the early 1990s, and to some extent still persists today. Firearms. Miami Vice also popularized certain brands of firearms and accessories. After Johnson became dissatisfied with his gun holster, the Jackass Leather Company sent their president, Rick Gallagher, to personally fit Don Johnson with an original Jackass rig, later renamed the Galco Miami Classic. The Brent N, manufactured by Dixon, was a stainless steel handgun used by Don Johnson during Miami Vice's first 2 seasons. Dixon went out of business in 1986, and Smith & Wesson was offered a contract to outfit Johnson's character with a S&W Model 645 during Season 3. Cars. 2 automobiles drew a lot of attention in Miami Vice, the Ferrari Daytona and Testarossa. During the first 2 seasons and 2 episodes of the 3rd season, Detective Sonny Crockett drove a black 1972 Ferrari Daytona Spider 365 GTS/4. Kit replica based on a 1980 Chevrolet Corvette C3 chassis. The car was fitted with Ferrari-shaped body panels by specialty car manufacturer McBurney. Once the car gained notoriety, Ferrari Automobili filed a lawsuit demanding that McBurney and others cease producing and selling Ferrari replicas, because they were taking his name and styling. As a result, the vehicle lasted until Season 3, at which point it was blown to pieces in the Season 3 premiere episode, When Irish Eyes Are Crying. The fake Ferraris were removed from the show, with Ferrari donating 2 brand new 1986 Testarossas as replacements. The series crew also used a 3rd Testarossa look-alike, which was the stunt car. Carl Roberts, who had worked on the Daytona kit cars, offered to build a stunt car. Roberts decided to use a 1972 De Tomaso Pantra, which had the same wheelbase as the Testarossa and thus was perfect for the body pieces. The vehicle was modified to withstand daily usage on set, and continued to be driven until the series ended. Sonny was also seen driving a black 1978 Porsche 911 SC Targa in a flashback to 1980 in the Season 3 episode Forgive Us Our Debts. Crockett's partner, Ricardo Tubbs, drove a 1964 Cadillac Coupe de Ville convertible. Stan Switek drove a turquoise 1963 Ford Thunderbird. Gina Calabrese drove in 1971 Mercury Cougar XR7 convertible. When Stan and Larry were undercover, they drove a Dodge Ram van. Other notable vehicles that appeared in Miami Vice included brands such as Lamborghini, AMG, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Maserati, Lotus, DeLorean, Porsche, and Corvettes. American muscle cars, such as the GTO, Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, Mustang, Chevrolet Camaro, Plymouth GTX or a Plymouth Barracuda, Buick Grand National also made appearances. Boats. Throughout the series, Sonny Crockett lived on an Endeavour sailboat named the St. Vitus Dance, while in the pilot episode, Crockett is seen on a 38-foot Cabo Rico sailboat. In Season 1, he is seen living on an Endeavour 40 sailboat while in the rest of the series, he is seen living on an Endeavour 42 sailboat. The allure of the sailboats was such that the Endeavour 42 used for the 1986 season of Miami Vice was sold to a Midwest couple, while the Endeavour 40 was sold to a chartering service in Fort Lauderdale. At the same time, Endeavour was building a new 42 for the 1987 season of Miami Vice. Crockett also pilots a 39-foot Chris Craft Stinger 390 in the first season, and a Wellcraft 38 Scarab KV for the remainder of the show. The Scarab 38 KV was a 28-hued, twin 440-horsepower boat that sold for $130,000 in 1986. As a result of the attention the Scarab 38 KV garnered on Miami Vice, Wellcraft received an onslaught of orders, increasing sales by 21% in 1 year. In appreciation, Wellcraft gave Don Johnson an exact duplicate of the boat. Afterward, Johnson was frequently seen arriving to work in it. Altogether, 100 copies of the boat were built by Wellcraft. The Miami Vice graphics and color scheme, which included turquoise, aqua, and orchid, was available by special order on any model Scarab from 20 to 38 feet. Don Johnson also designed the Scarab XL 43 LFT, Don Johnson's signature series, and raced a similar one. The Don Johnson Signature Series was powered by twin 650-horsepower Lamborghini V12s, which caused some problems to the design of the boat due to their size. Overall the boat cost $300,000 with each engine amounting to between $60 to $70,000. His interest in boat racing eventually led Johnson to start his own offshore powerboat racing team, called Team USA. Joining him were Hollywood stars including Kurt Russell and Chuck Norris. Johnson won the Offshore World Cup in 1988 and continued racing into the 1990s. Episodes. Episode scripts were loosely based on actual crimes that occurred in Miami over the years. The series also took a look at political issues such as the Northern Ireland conflict, the drug war in South America, several episodes drawn on the Miami River cop scandal, as well as several episodes of Cuban exile guerrillas, drug trafficking, and U.S. support of anti-communist generals and dictators in Southeast Asia and South America. Social issues like child abuse, homophobia, and the AIDS crisis were also covered. Personal issues also arose. Crockett is separated from his wife Caroline in the pilot and divorced in the 4th episode, and later his second wife Caitlin Davis is killed by one of his enemies. In the 3 episodes Mirror Image, Hostile Takeover, and Redemption in Blood, a concussion caused by an explosion caused Crockett to believe he was his undercover alter ego Sonny Burnett, a drug dealer. Tubbs had a running, partly personal vendetta with the Calderon family, a member of which had ordered the death of his brother Raphael, a New York City police detective. In the first seasons the tone was often very light, especially when comical characters such as police informants Noogie Lamont and Izzy Marino appeared. Later the content was usually dark and cynical, often bordering on the existential, with Crockett and Tubbs fighting corruption, and storylines emphasizing the aspect of human tragedy behind a crime. Typically, the darker episodes had no denouement, each episode ending abruptly after a climax involving violence and death, often giving the episodes a despairing and sometimes nihilistic feel, despite the trademark glamour and conspicuous wealth. Given its idiosyncratic dark feel and touch, Miami Vice is frequently cited as an example of made-for-TV neo-noir. Although on the surface Miami Vice seemed to celebrate Reaganism, and concomitant with this also 1980s yuppieism, many episodes actually contain subtle criticism of the political and social culture of the Reagan years and the Reagan administration's domestic and foreign policies, and at times even suggested that the decadent sex and drugs culture of 1980s Miami was a result of Reaganism. Michael Mann, who served as executive producer for the majority of the show's 5-year run, is often credited with being one of the most influential neo-noir directors. In 1997, the second season episode Out Where the Buses Don't Run was ranked number 90 on TV Guide's 100 Greatest Episodes of All Time list. Cancellation. For its third season in 1986-87, the show moved from its traditional time slot of 10 p.m. on Friday nights to 9 p.m., which now put it up against perennial top 10 show Dallas. This began the show's decline, and in March, 1987, TV Guide ran a cover story entitled, "Dallas Drubs the Cops, Why Miami Vice Seems to Be Slipping." Miami Vice's season ratings slipped from number 9 in Season 2 down to number 27 by the end of Season 3. By Season 4, the original writers had left the series. Stories included a courtship and marriage between Sonny Crockett and Caitlin Davis, and a plot in which Crockett developed amnesia. Jan Hammer departed from the series at the end of the 4th season and was replaced by Tim Truman. Before leaving the series to work on his new television series, Crime Story, Michael Mann handed the role of executive producer to future Law & Order creator Dick Wolf prior to the 3rd season. Wolf had the show focus on contemporary issues like the Troubles in Northern Ireland and capital punishment. The 5th season took the show on a more serious tone, with storylines becoming dark and grittier enough so that even some of the most loyal fans were left perplexed. As the 5th season began, Olivia Brown recalled, the show was trying to reinvent itself. Dick Wolf said in an interview for E! True Hollywood Story, after the 5th season, it was all just kind of over, and that the show had run its course. In May 1989, NBC aired the 2-hour series finale, Freefall. Despite its status as the series finale, there were 3 episodes that didn't air: World of Trouble, Miracle Man, and Leap of Faith, which appeared during the June reruns as lost episodes. A 4th, previously unbroadcast episode, Too Much Too Late, was aired for the first time in 1990, on the USA Network. It has since been run by other networks in syndication with the 5th season episodes. International broadcasters. In 1984, the show was also aired on GMA Network every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. after news at 7, replacing GMA Belitla in 1986. Reruns of the series later aired on the FX from 1996–1999. Then in 2006 the cable network TV Land aired episodes for about a year. The same year the series began airing on the Sleuth Network in the United States until 2008, and now episodes air on the Centric Network, NBC Action in the Arab world, TRT1 and Star TV in Turkey, Iris in Italy, Viasat TV6 in Sweden, Viasat 3 Plus in Denmark, TV7 in Bulgaria, TV3 in Estonia, ZDF in Germany, and 111 Hits in Australia. Philippines, GMA Network, Israel, Channel 1, United Kingdom, BBC, Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, Indonesia, RCTI, Cast. Main characters, Don Johnson as Detective James Sonny Crockett, an undercover detective of the Metro-Dade Police Department. A former University of Florida Gators football star, he sustained an injury which put an end to his sports career. He was subsequently drafted by the U.S. Army, and served in the 1st Cavalry Division and in the Special Forces. He served 2 tours in Vietnam, or as he calls it, the Southeast Asia Conference. In 1975 he became a Metro-Dade uniformed patrol officer and later an undercover detective of the Vice Unit. Crockett's alias is Sonny Burnett, a drug runner and middleman. His vehicles include a Ferrari Daytona Spider, a Scarab offshore powerboat, and a sailboat on which he lives with his pet alligator Elvis. The name Sonny Crockett had previously been used for a criminal played by actor Dennis Berkeley on Hill Street Blues in 1983, where creator Anthony Yakovich was a writer. Coincidentally, Gregory Sierra, who later played Crockett's boss on Vice, appeared in the same episodes. Philip Michael Thomas as Detective Ricardo Rico Tubbs, a former New York police detective who travels to Miami as part of a personal vendetta against Calderon, the man who murdered his brother. After temporarily teaming up with Crockett, Tubbs follows his friend's advice and transfers to a career in Southern law enforcement. He joins the Miami department and becomes Crockett's permanent partner. He often poses as Rico Cooper, a wealthy buyer from out of town. Edward James Olmos as Lieutenant Marty Costello, he replaces the slain Rodriguez as head of the OCB. A very taciturn man, Costello lives a reclusive life outside of work. He was formerly a DEA agent in the Golden Triangle of Southeast Asia during the late 1970s. During his time as an agent, he opposed the CIA in endorsing the trafficking of heroin to finance their overseas operations. Some of Costello's habits, such as his desk always being free of paperwork and his request that anyone entering his office should knock first, were suggested by Edward James Olmos during filming. Sandra Santiago as Detective Gina Navarro Calabrese, a fearless female detective, who after Crockett's divorce, held a brief romance with him. Even after their relationship did not progress, they still have a strong friendship. Olivia Brown as Detective Trudy Joplin, Gina's patrol partner. Though tough, big booty Trudy sometimes struggles to face consequences of her job, such as when she shot and killed a man. Later in the series she has an encounter with a UFO and an alien portrayed by James Brown. Michael Talbot as Detective Stanley Stan Switek, a fellow police detective and good friend to Larry. Although a good policeman, later on in the series he falls prey to a gambling addiction. He is also a big fan of Elvis Presley. John Dill as Detective Lawrence Larry Zito, a detective and Switek's surveillance partner. He was killed in the line of duty when a drug dealer gave him a fatal overdose. Dill enjoyed being on Vice but wanted to leave the show, opting for a more creative opportunity in theater. Gregory Sierra as Lieutenant Lou Rodriguez, a police lieutenant who serves as commander of the Vice Unit. He is killed in the 4th episode by an assassin hired to kill Crockett. Recurring characters, Charlie Barnett as Newgart Neville Noogie Lamont, a friend of Izzy's and informant for Crockett and Tubbs. Sheena Easton as Caitlin Davis Crockett, a pop singer who is assigned a police bodyguard, Crockett, for her testimony in a racketeering case. While protecting Caitlin, Sonny falls in love with her and they get married. Months after their marriage, Caitlin is killed by one of Crockett's former nemeses. Sonny later learns she was 7 weeks pregnant, causing him further emotional turmoil. Martin Ferrero as Isidore Izzy Marino, a petty criminal and fast talker, Izzy is always known for getting into quick money schemes and giving Crockett and Tubbs the latest information from the street. Pam Grier as Valerie Gordon, a New York Police Department officer and on and off love interest of Tubbs. Belinda Montgomery as Caroline Crockett Ballard, Crockett's former wife who moves to Ocala, Florida to remarry and raise their child, Billy. Caroline had a baby with her second husband in her last appearance. Guest appearances. Many notable actors, actresses, musicians, comedians, athletes, celebrities, appeared throughout the show's 5-season run. He played many different roles from drug dealer to undercover cops to madams. The full list can be seen at the link above, as this is just a partial list. Notable musicians include Sheena Easton, Willie Nelson, Gene Simmons, and Ted Nugent. Additionally Glenn Frey, Frank Zappa, Phil Collins, Miles Davis, Frankie Valli, Little Richard, James Brown, Leonard Cohen, The Band Power Station, Coty Mundy, and Eartha Kitt. Other notable personalities included auto executive Lee Iacocca and Watergate conspirator G. Gordon Liddy. Athletes included Boston Celtics center Bill Russell, Bernard King, race car driver Danny Sullivan, and boxers Roberto Duran and Randall Tex Cobb. Notable actors of that time included Dean Stockwell, Pam Grier, Clarence Williams III, and Brian Dennehy. Most of the show involved guest appearances from up-and-coming actors and actresses. These include Lawrence Fishburne, Viggo Mortensen, Dennis Farina, Stanley Tucci, Jimmy Smits, Bruce McGill, David Strathairn, Ving Rhames, Liam Neeson, Lou Diamond Phillips, Bruce Willis, Ed O'Neill, and Julia Roberts. Additionally, Michael Madsen, Ian McShane, Bill Paxton, Louis Guzman, Kira Sedgwick, Esai Morales, Terry Owen, Joaquim de Almeida, Wesley Snipes, John Turturro, and Melanie Griffith, to name a few. Future notable comedians included John Leguizamo, David Rush, Ben Stiller, Chris Rock, Tommy Chong, Richard Belzer, and Penn Jillette. Reception, awards and nominations. Ratings: 1984 Euro 1985 season, number 31, 1985 Euro 1986 season, number 9, 1986 Euro 1987 season, number 27, 1987 Euro 1988 season, number 41, 1988 Euro 1989 season, number 61, series finale, 22 million viewers and a 14.7 rating on May 21, 1989 from 9-11 p.m. Competition: Everybody's Baby, The Rescue of Jessica McClure and Mickey Spillane. Mike Hammer, final airing on NBC, 16.1 million viewers / 11.1 rating. China Beach drew 10.8 million viewers / 8 rating. Criticism: Critics have objected to the show's usage of violence by dressing it with pretty photography. Others complained that the show relied more on visual aspects and music than on coherent stories and fully drawn characters. Civic leaders in Miami have also objected to the show's airing of the city's crime problems all across America. Most civic leaders, however, have been placated due to the show's estimated contribution of $1 million per episode to the city's economy and boosting tourism to Miami. Gerald S. Arenberg of the National Association of Chiefs of Police criticized the show's glamorous depiction of vice squads, saying no real vice cops chase drug dealers in a Ferrari while wearing $600 suits. More often than not, they're holed up in a crummy room somewhere, wearing jeans with holes in them, watching some beat-up warehouse in a godforsaken part of town through a pair of dented binoculars. At the 1985 Emmy Awards, Miami Vice was nominated for 15 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Writing in a Dramatic Series, Outstanding Film Editing, Outstanding Achievement for Music Composition for a Series, and Outstanding Directing. At the end of the night, Miami Vice only won 4 Emmys. The following day, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner could only conclude that the conservative Emmy voters simply refused to recognize an innovative new series that celebrated hedonism, violence, sex, and drugs. Impact on popular culture. Miami Vice was a groundbreaking police program of the 1980s, and one of the best-known shows of that decade. It had a notable impact on the decade's popular fashions and set the tone for the evolution of police drama. Series such as Homicide, Life on the Street, NYPD Blue, and the Law & Order franchise, though being markedly different in style and theme from Miami Vice, followed its lead in breaking the genre's mold. Dick Wolf, creator and executive producer of the Law & Order franchise, was a writer and later executive producer of Miami Vice. Although sometimes heavily disputed by their producers, the movies Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2 have been said by at least one reviewer to have been inspired by the concept of 2 undercover cops in the glitzy, upscale yet seedy world of South Florida law enforcement. The show has been so influential that the style of Miami Vice has often been borrowed or alluded to by much of contemporary pop culture in order to indicate or emphasize the 1980s decade. Its influence as a popular culture icon is still seen today, more than 20 years after appearing. Examples of this includes the episode The One with All the Thanksgivings from the American sitcom Friends. Flashback scenes from the 1980s in this episode showed the characters Ross and Chandler in pastel-colored suits with rolled-up sleeves like that of Sonny Crockett. Another example would be the video game Grand Theft Auto: Vice City, which was published by Rockstar Games in 2002 and is set in a stylized 1980s Miami. Two undercover police officers appear in a police sports car within the game when 3 felony stars are obtained by the player. The two officers, one white and one black, resemble the two leading characters of Miami Vice. One of the main characters, Lance Vance, was actually voiced by Philip Michael Thomas. In the prequel, Grand Theft Auto: Vice City Stories, there are two officers in the multiplayer mode named Cracker and Butts, a parody of Crockett and Tubbs. These characters share the same role as the undercover cops in Vice City. In the film Boogie Nights, the movie takes place in the 1970s. The movie progresses into the 1980s and closes with Mark Wahlberg wearing a white linen jacket, sleeves rolled up, and a bright pink shirt tucked into white linen pants. This informs the audience the year is now somewhere in the mid-1980s due to the massive popularity of Miami Vice from 1984–1986. Many of the fads and trends popularized by the TV show, such as fast cars and speedboats, unshaven beard stubble, a t-shirt under pastel suits, no socks, rolled-up sleeves, boat shoes and Ray-Ban sunglasses symbolize the stereotypical image of 1980s fashion and culture. The show also had a lasting impact on Miami itself. It sparked a revitalization of the South Beach district of Miami Beach, as well as other portions of the Miami area, and increased tourism and investment. The fact that Crockett and Tubbs were Dade County officers and not City of Miami police represented the growing notion of metro government in Miami. In 1997, a county referendum changed the name from Dade County to Miami-Dade County. This allowed people to relate the county government to recognized notions and images of Miami, many of which were first popularized by Miami Vice. The Dade County Sheriff's Office now became the Miami-Dade Police Department. DVD releases. Universal Studios Home Entertainment has released all Miami Vice seasons on DVD for Regions 1, 2, and 4. Seasons 1 and 2 were released in 2005, and Seasons 3 through 5 were released in 2007. The DVD release of the series had been significantly slow due to one of the signature features of the show, the heavy integration of 1980s pop and rock music. The music was difficult to source the rights to and acquire permission to use. In the November 2004 announcement for the DVD release of the series, Universal promised that all original music in the series would be intact. On August 21, 2007, Universal announced the November 13, 2007 release of the complete series, with all 5 seasons on 27 single-sided DVDs. The seasons will be in their own digipack-style cases, and the set is housed in a faux alligator skin package. Seasons 1 and 2 contained 6 single-sided discs, rather than the 3 double-sided discs in the initial release. The Region 2 version has different packaging, does not use double-sided discs, and although there are no special features stated on the packaging, they are contained within the Season 1 discs. References. External links: Latham, Caroline. Miami Magic, Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas, The Inside Story of the Stars of Miami Vice, and of their other television and film work. New York, Zebra Books, 1985. NB. The subtitle given, lacking on the TP, is from the PBK Books front cover. ISBN 0-8217-1800-2, Miami Vice at the Internet Movie Database, Miami Vice at TV.com, official Miami Vice DVD website, Miami Vice at the Museum of Broadcast Communications, Miami Vice on Hulu.com.